Welcome to the Community Clubs Victoria podcast. My name is John Deeks, and the purpose of this series is to gain a deeper understanding of the work that not-for-profit community clubs do in caring for their members and the profits that they generate supporting local communities and how those clubs are part of the fabric of the communities. And to help me understand the facts and put to bed some of the misconceptions surrounding Community Clubs Victoria, I'm joined by the CEO of CCV, Andrew Lloyd. Hello, Andrew.
Hello to you, John. Good to see you.
And you as well. And we're actually in the offices of CCV, and we have a special guest.
We do. We have our Self-Exclusion manager, Michelle Dalmau, with us this morning. Hello to you, Michelle.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, John.
Can you provide me an overview of what self-exclusion programs involve and their objectives?
Yeah, so self-exclusion is a tool used by those who experience from their gambling behaviour. So it's a self-help program. It's a way of patrons or people taking the next step, so taking control of their gambling behaviour. That's a part of the healing process.
What inspired self-exclusion programs through CCV?
So when gaming first came to, or the poker machines first came to Victoria in 1992, 5 years on, the industry realised that there were some people that were experiencing difficulty with playing the poker machines. So therefore the industry introduced the self-exclusion program. It has changed quite considerably since then. It's a lot more accessible now.
Michelle, during the pandemic, we really expanded and adapted the program. We'll talk about that in a moment, but also some people don't realise that Michelle has been involved with enhancing the program, dealing with counsellors, dealing with corrections to do with prisoner pre-release assistance. So there's people that, as Michelle alluded to, need some help and support, a safety net to do with their gambling behaviours. So part of this program gets them referrals to counsellors and support services to help them. But the work that Michelle does is so important to communicate with the venues, talk with the patrons, and be essentially the bureau that assists in running the program for clubs.
Michelle, how did you come to this role? It's obviously a very broad role, and there's a lot of different tools needed.
There is. Well, I've been in the industry for a few years.
Were you working in clubs?
So many years ago, when my children were young, I did work in an RSL club, which introduced me into the gaming side of the industry.
So you've seen both sides?
I have.
Yeah.
I have, definitely. So I was able to gain lots of skills on that side, working with patrons and different types of people. And then as years went by, I went into the association side of things and was asked, did I want to assist with the self-exclusion program? So I've been doing it ever since then. But as Andrew mentioned, it's come a long way since then. It's a lot more accessible to people. It's not so difficult.
Michelle, during the pandemic, of course, people's potential issues with gambling products don't stop, and that's one of the things that unfortunately the prohibitionists don't understand, that if you just limit a particular form of gambling, it doesn't actually just mean that it just stops and is a silver bullet. Just talk us through, during the pandemic we did the online applications and you were still assisting the industry during that sort of peaks and troughs of coming through the pandemic and then back to sort of the more normalised environment. Just talk us through what was developed and how the program expanded over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. So while the venues remained closed during the pandemic, there were still people out there that wanted to self-exclude. So for them, they looked at it that, okay, I can't go into the venues and gamble, but I want to be able to save the money that I've been able to accumulate during the time the venues have been closed. So self-exclusion still continued, but while there was no face-to-face interaction, we did most things by either mail or by email, and then also had telephone conversations just explaining to people how they could gain access to the program. They were able to take their own photos. It just worked really well during that time.
I guess technology has come such a long way as well. With facial recognition, we were talking about that down at Altona, weren't we?
Yeah, look, facial recognition is something that certainly is starting to occur in venues. It's a great tool. The venues need to understand the due diligence they need to go through to have it properly set up to do with the data privacy and security policies, the information for people so that they're aware that...
Is that something you're encouraging clubs to get involved in?
It's perhaps a little bit too early because the Privacy Commission, we understand, is looking at reviewing the current laws. That the laws are trailing the technology. I'd say if it was my venue, would I want to look at facial recognition? Yes, because if it's implemented properly with all the right protections and controls, it actually protects these vulnerable people that are seeking assistance and is a great safety net that also assists the staff as a good tool.
Michelle Dalmau is our guest today from the CCV Self-Exclusion Program Department. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What actually happens in a club if I want to self-exclude?
So usually the venue would pass on CCV's contact details and we would reach out to that person. There are some venues that do access the self-exclusion program themselves, so they have login details to our program, particularly regional venues. So they may have a patron in there that day who's experiencing gambling issues. They mention that to a staff member who contacts the manager, and the manager is able to see that person there and then to access self-exclusion. So it's an immediate access to the program. So that means that the person is therefore banned from that day onwards from gaining access to the venue. So it's very effective and very timely ways.
Michelle and Andrew, we've spoken before on how fantastic community clubs are in knowing their members, recognising problems, because it's a family.
Look, it is, and the staff know their members, they know their regulars. You're right, John, they're looking out for people, so they've got that focus. A great initiative that Michelle's helped us with is working with the Trauma Centre. We've recently had some seminars for club people to do with the responses and the best way from a psychology point of view to help patrons with issues. So that's been something that's been a recent rollout of some programs with the assistance of the Trauma Centre. Did you want to talk about that, Michelle? You're at the recent one at Bendigo. Just your takeaways from, once again, another form of support for the industry around the self-exclusion program.
So the Trauma Centre is really effective in training staff on how to deal with certain situations. So whether it be a medical situation or a person that's aggravated or intoxicated. So the training sessions does train staff members how to do that. It's a very, very effective program because it's not just sitting and learning as in a PowerPoint presentation. It's also hands-on. Participation by groups. So it's a great way to learn, I think.
Michelle, once somebody has self-excluded, is there any backup or follow-up from CCV?
Yes, at a time a person signs up for self-exclusion, we always offer counselling service. So quite often for the person, counselling along with self-exclusion works hand in hand. So the person can go along for a counselling session. They've got their self-exclusion in place, and at the counselling session, they're able to address their triggers as to what makes them gamble, like what's in their mind that says, I want to go to this venue and I want to play the poker machine, and addresses that, and also addresses a way for them to be able to leave that alone. So just put certain measures in place.
Staff members in the CCV clubs around Victoria, are they taught to recognise the triggers when somebody needs help?
Yes, staff are taught to look for those signs. So this can be if they see a person that's at a machine for a long period of time, they can just simply go up and say, how's your day? Would you like a water? Or just to break that
cycle,
mindset, that gameplay.
Look, there's some really good points, Michelle. We've found, certainly the interviews that I've been part of with people that are signing up to SEP, it's almost like a relief. Once they've signed the application and they know this is in place, they've got their action plan to support them. So I think a positive thing, and I know you express that to the people to say congratulations, see it as a positive thing to make sure that you've got that safety and that protection in place.
So people can still enjoy everything that a club has to offer, all the wonderful benefits that it has, but self-exclude from the gaming.
Absolutely. We're talking with the Gaming Commission in Canberra. The Canberra Vikings Club has a great program that interfaces with self-exclusion. It's called the Ask for Andy. Someone comes up to the bar and says, the code word is, can I talk to Andy? But Ask Randy means that the staff recognise, oh, okay, let's pop this person into a private area, make them a coffee, get the information about self-exclusion, counselling, and to assist them. It might be that lady has a concern to do with grandma's gambling habits, their sister, their husband, family member. So we'd love to actually progress the Ask for Andy program in Victoria.
We could call it Ask Michelle.
Well, we could, absolutely. But it's good training, because under that program in ACT, the staff are also trained to do with further indicators to do with potential gambling harm. Can I say, John, some business people might think, my goodness, is this going to harm the club's income from the product? Well, the result of not just the trial but long-term implementation of the program in Canberra is no. It protects the club, it protects the patrons, and the club is clearly wanting to make sure people don't overspend, and that's what the program's all about, a more holistic approach to supporting people.
The media love, Michelle and Andrew, to present stories of people being affected by gambling.
Yeah.
But we never hear any good news stories as far as follow-up. Do you have any positive results and outcomes from the self-exclusion programs implemented by CCV?
Yeah, I could tell many. A while ago, we had a gentleman who was a chauffeur. Mm-hmm. And so while he was waiting for the person to attend meetings and that, he found time that he would go into the venues, and gambling became a habit because that was the way he was filling in the void while the person he was waiting for, he was spending all this money. So he contacted us, self-excluded, put other things in place, and the gambling immediately stopped. So he was able to take control. We put him in touch with counselling service. So it was a win-win situation. We've also had stories where people have been struggling to pay their mortgage, which is really very sad. So we've been able to, again, have them self-excluded to take control so they can't go to the venue, and also arrange for financial counselling. And on some very good cases, we've had where the mortgage can be, reduced for a certain period of time for those people to be able to gain control.
And as you say, there are thousands of stories, positive stories from the self-exclusion. And I can't believe 1997 it began.
Yes.
What changes have you seen across that time?
Well, it's mainly just that people know that there's help out there. There is a tool that they can use. So like they say, for people that smoke, there's the Quit campaign.
Yeah.
So for people that have a gambling problem, there is a self-exclusion program. And it is like the Quit campaign, a self-help tool. The person does have to take control.
Look, I'd also add, John, that some of these behaviours, there's other things happening in people's lives. There's other issues where they need assistance. A friend of mine recently said to me, he said, I'm glad we don't have a gambling problem in my family, but we have an online shopping problem. There can be things that people need to reassess their spending, look at support mechanisms in place to do with what's happening in their life.
Michelle, for individuals or organisations interested in learning more about the self-exclusion programs, where should they go?
They can go to the CCV website, which is ccv.net.au. We have 2 tabs. One says, how can I self-exclude? People can log on directly and sign up to the program.
Oh, okay.
And then we also have a page for venues to become more informed about our self-exclusion program called E. So it's Easy Access Self-Exclusion.
And it's all there on that website?
It is, yes. I'd just like to add one more thing to our discussion. With the development of our EASE program, which is Easy Access Self-Exclusion, there's many counselling services across the state that have login details or logins to that program. So it means if a counsellor is seeing a client for counselling and that person decides they want to self-exclude, the counsellor can log on to that program there and then. So it alleviates any wait time and the person has access to the program immediately and it's in effect.
That's been a great innovation, Michelle, because some years ago this was more paper-based. So the Ease portal has been a great advancement to do with that responsive assistance so people aren't on a waiting list.
Andrew, Lloyd, Michelle, thank you so much indeed for allowing me to come into your CCV office today and have a chat about the self-exclusion programs implemented by CCV over a long period of time and the advancements therein and the help, the real help you're giving people who want to do just that and participate in the program. Andrew, I've learnt more again.
Great to have you here today, and thank you, Michelle, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this CCV podcast, and we hope that you'll join us again next time. Thanks for listening.